This afternoon's session will wrap up with a final discussion by the community speakers. The session will be chaired by Ambassador K. Kesavabani, Deputy Chairman, IHC Concept and Content Subcommittee. It's also a member of the IHC Steering Committee and Singapore's non-resident ambassador to Jordan. To commence the panel discussion, it's my great pleasure to invite Ambassador Kesavabani to give the introductory remarks and introduce the speakers. Ambassador, please.
Good afternoon, friends. First, let us congratulate ourselves for staying right till the end. Secondly, let me offer congratulations on all your behalf to Gauri and her team for putting such I can tell you from my experience in my previous incarnation that this conference is equal to any in an academic setting. The amount of intellectual substance that has come out of it is really something that we can all be proud of. I would also like to thank Gauri for making sure the last section is mine, because this is something personal. The two friends I'm going to introduce are very close and dear friends of mine. And so first let me speak about Mr. Samuel Duraisingam. I don't know why, anywhere I go, people come up to me. Even just now during tea time, Arun came up to me and said, Samuel is my teacher. Mr. Samuel is my teacher. But that is one, is Mushahid Ali. So it looks like half of Singapore he has taught. But that's the beauty of being a teacher. I'm a teacher too, but not too many people come up and... Samuel and I came into contact through a very strange coincidence. One day I received a call from the Istana from our 6th president, Mr. S.R. Nathan, and said, hey, Pani, I've got this manuscript from Mr. Samuel Duraisingam. Can you have a look at it and see whether ISIS can publish it? Of course, my antenna went up because, as an academic institution, we make sure that whatever stuff is given to us, we ensure that it has quality. So I said, okay, I will have a look at it. So the manuscript came to me. I took it home, got into my usual sarong, took out 2 packs of whiskey. That's how I read all the manuscripts. These are trade secrets I'm reading. And I tell you, I read the manuscript at one sitting. I started about 8:30, I finished at 4. Because it was so gripping. And so next day, I rang up Mr. Nathan and said, okay, we'll publish it. And I got Trina Ong and gave it to her. And this is the book. This is the book that came out of it. Now, the wonder of this is this. This book gave birth to a group of Indians who until then did not have an identity. They vaguely remembered they were Chetty Malaccas, is that. The gentleman sitting there is one of them there. And then once the book was launched, on the launch, we had a launch and then they brought in people from Malacca, the original home of the Chetty Malacca. And so a book can lead to the realization that there is a community. That is the message that I would like to share with you. The rest of the story, I won't steal his thunder, he will say. The other speaker is a great friend of mine. I tell you, he's a passionate man. If you look at him, how passionate he is. He's passionate about his community. He's passionate about interfaith dialogue. He's passionate about Rotary. We belong to the same Rotary Club, so he's a man of all passions. He will speak on the Parsi community in Singapore. So there we are, two very distinguished with a lot of experience, and one will talk about the Chitty Malacca community and life in Malacca, and the other gentleman will speak on the Parsi community in Singapore. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kesavapani, for very kind words. My greatest problem was when you written a book with so much of details, present it all in 10 to 15 minutes. It is strange, it is not strange, or it is strange today, that we all know about the Pernakans. We have a Pernakan museum. The 3 levels of Pernakan furniture, Pernakan ceramics, and we also have 2 Pernakan organizations, Pernakan Association of Singapore and the Dondang Sayang. They are Pernakan Chinese. There's Pernakan Jawi, Pernakan Portuguese. But none, very few, have heard about the Pernakan Indians. This afternoon we had a talk on Chettiars. So these Pernakan Indians, known as Chetty Malacca, or in my book I've said Pernakan India, Indian Babas and Onyas, or Chitty Malacca. So we know now that Chettiars are quite different from the Chettis. Chetty comes from the word Setchi, that means merchants in Singapore. That means once they were merchants. Now when you look at this map, it's you can't see the details, but you will find for many, many years, particularly during the Chola period, Indian merchants came down South India, and from the Malabar coast as well, came around into Southeast Asia. They were all Raja during the Chola period, Raja Chola and Rajendra Chola, and they came up in here. But the origins of the Chitty Malacca start in Malacca, and that is because Parameswara was a Palembang prince in Indonesia, was driven out by the Majapahit, the Hindu empire in Java. And he went through Singapore and then he fled on and founded the settlement of Malacca. And that is where we get the origins of the Chitty Malacca. So the merchants. So at that period of time, this merchant traveled from South India. Most of them were Tamils. They traveled all the way to Malacca when it was founded the year about 1402 by Parameswara. So the Indians then began to trade there. It became a port, a big port, Malacca. It became a Malacca Sultanate and a port as well. So traders from all parts of the world traded in there. So the Tamils went there and started trading. And they were merchants. They went in, and then they developed and stayed there for a while, long time, years. And then you find they had to travel between Malacca and South India during the monsoon winds, either the northeast monsoon wind and then the southwest as well. So for months they had to remain in Malacca. The families, the wives were in South India. So they were there. Some were bachelors, some were married men, and they have the staff as well, bookkeepers and other people as well. So they began eventually to have contact with the local people here. At that time, they began to get married. Intermarriages between the Malacca Chittis, they married Malays, they married the Javanese, they married even the Bataks. And their offerings became Chetty Malacca. And then you find, there also eventually, you find where the Chinese were also trading with Malacca. And they also married the Malays as well. So you find some of the Chetty Malaccas married also the Chinese Babas. So you find the Chetty Malacca is a unique community which enjoys Indian culture, Malay culture, and Chinese culture. Nowhere in Malaya or in Singapore except for the Chetty Malacca. So you would call them, in fact, first class, top class Singaporeans enjoying three cultures. So you find then, when we see the Peranakan Chinese having Emerald Hill, houses, Peranakan furniture, ceramics, but we haven't heard of them. What happened to them? They not even know. When you talk to somebody, have you heard of them? No, but I've seen some women there wearing a sarong and kabaya and talking Malay. And they themselves, the Chetty Malacca community itself, whether in Malacca or in Singapore, they were not sure of the origins. They had all kinds of funny views about the origins. So they began to hid. In fact, one of my teachers in my school when I was a principal, he was Chetty Malacca. But he was always reluctant to say, you mentioned that word, because some say they were descendants of the Indian convicts. So you find must have to have some idea why the Chetty Malacca went down the line, whereas the Peranakan Chinese became rich and well-to-do. So I have to just tell you very quickly the history so that you will know what is happening, actually, the life in Malacca, the Chetty Malacca. So when the Malacca Sultanate was there, the Tamils had a special position in the Malacca Sultanate. They were respected. There was a special place allocated for them in Malacca for them to settle down. Then when the Portuguese came in, one of the Chetty Malacca became a Menteri Besar, or what he called like a chief minister, Nantri Chetty. There were such positions. But later you find when the Portuguese invaded, Malacca Sultanate started about Malacca 1402. Portuguese invaded Malacca in 1511. So when they were all right under the Portuguese, then the Dutch invaded Malacca in 1641. So that is where the beginning of the downfall of the Chetty Malacca community started, because the Dutch eventually monopolized the trade within South India and Malacca. And also you get the emergence of Muslim power in India. Vijayanagar had fallen, the great Tamil capital fallen in. So you find they were completely cut off. So the Chetty Malacca had what kind of economy? So they find the merchants, or real merchants, went back to South India, leaving behind the bookkeepers and accountants. And they find the Chetty Malacca had a caste system. If you went to Gajaberak, that's where you have them today, you'll find, when you ask them who are the people living there, there's about 500, they classified them according to the caste. You get the Chittis, the merchant class, the Naikas. Then you have various things, even you call Kallan. Kallan means robbers. So eventually the merchant, the brilliant chaps had gone back, these people remained. So when they lost the trade, they went on to what they did. Some went into brick-making kilns, you see. And also some went in to do some goldsmith job. Then after that, they found they failed in that occupations. They began to move into what they call into agriculture. That is, they began to move to the interior of Malacca. And where they are concentrated today is Gajaberag. Gaja means elephant, Berang means fierce. That they settled there. And they began to start agriculture. And that's why you'll find in agriculture that's what you call Grama Koil. That means temples, little temples in the the farmlands. They eventually failed even in agriculture. So that was the situation. So you find one thing now, if you look at the Chitti Malacca, the greatest thing in them is that faith in the Saivite faith. They are all Saivites. So you find the oldest temple in Malaysia and Singapore is in Malacca, 1781, Sri Poyata Vinagar Murthy Temple. That's the oldest temple. Because they are unable to maintain the temple, they asked the Chetty Malacca, Chettiar community, the moneylenders community, to manage the temple. But they keep themselves, the Chetty Malacca, just keep themselves simply as trustees because they just don't have the finance. So you find the ancestors of the early merchants built this temple in 1781 and built other temples as well. And the most significant thing about the Chetty Malacca is that the temple it controls all the land, that the temple lands. And the temple is elected by a committee. And one outstanding thing about the thing is, when the committee is elected, they go before the shrine, and then they give them the oath, take the oath that they will serve the temple in all respect, maintain the honors, and they got to be honest people and generous and help in the temple funds. So you find that is the greatest thing about them. So if you look at the various aspects, the dressing, the food they eat, and they find the food is largely Malay food, babas, they were cakes, but they have, of course, the blachan there, which is the shrimp paste, which is common to them. But the Chetty Malacca will never eat pork or beef. On Fridays, generally in Gajabirang, they would simply be vegetarians. So you find the temple in Gajabirang is what is known as the Sri Maha. The name of the temple is this. Yes, the Pitwa temple, the biggest temple. There you find they have various ceremonies. They observe all the festivals that the Hindus have got. The Pongal festival, whether it's the Thai Pongal, Matu Pongal, Kanni Pongal, Vutu Pongal, and they also have a Pongal, the harvest festival in the temples as well. Then you have other special festivals which are related to find something common along along with the others as well. The Chinese festivals, the Bogi festival is there, so forth. Then you have the language, they speak the Baba language, Then they have, for example, outstanding one, special one, is what they do is these padel, what they offer to the ancestors, you find they have Chinese custom as well. So serve the food to the ancestors. And they toss the coin, that's the Chinese festival. The coin is on the observed side. Okay, they're happy, they're eating the food well, they're happy to eat the ancestors. They're not happy, means the other way around, Then you find it take a longer time, then they say, well, it is because they're invited friends. So we have this thing there in the language and food and names. They follow the Malay names, it's shortcut in the names. For example, you can't say Saundara Rajan, they will say Saurajan. Arjuna, Arjun. Then they have the nicknames. Then you find the chap is Krishna is Chris. So say Kichi, Krishna Kichi, that means he's small. So you find they are there, and depending on the temple lands and the income of the temples, selling some of the land to the Chinese thing. So you find whatever it is, the greatest strength is that Saivism, the faith in the religion, and the temple plays an important part. But today they are all right. There always one, there was a postmaster, was a Chetty Malacca Naikar, and another man, Chitti, was the branch manager of the Borneo Motors. One was the principal of a secondary school, they are down. When the British came in and took over after the Anglo-Dutch Treaty of 1824, when they took over, the Chittim Malacca went to the government service. They went to the police force, civil service, and so forth. And you find the same thing in Singapore. They've gone to the civil service and the police force and so forth. So you find they are a unique people with three cultures. Thank you.
Ambassador Kisarapani, scholars, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you. I'm honored to be invited to speak about the Parsis. Now, Parsis are one of the smallest community now in the world. And in Singapore also it's the same. We are the smallest community in Singapore. But because we are small here in Singapore, it's like one family. We are 250 people. 200, not families, 250 and 53 children. So that's a record. For 250, 53 children is a record for Singapore. But they were not born in Singapore, so we didn't get any Nobel Prize for that. They came from other places. Now, Parsis are Zoroastrians. Let me explain to you, because many people think Parsi is a religion. It's not a religion. The religion is Zoroastrianism. But Parsi's name came only from India. When we landed in India, 1700 plus years ago, the Indians asked, where did you come from? So it was from Paras, a place in Iran. And they said, oh, you are Parsis. That name stuck to us till today. But Parsis are known in India better than anywhere else because of the large charities. The amount of charities that Parsis have done, you cannot imagine. No other community in the world or in India has done that much charities as Parsis. And Mahatma Gandhi has written a paragraph on that. But the most important thing that we have in our religion is to share. Caring and sharing is very important, which we are talking about today in Singapore. That is part of our life. The other good thing about the Parsis was that because we were not allowed to move for 700 years from the place where we landed in India, we became very close as a family. For 700 years, we lived in Sanjan, about 180 miles off Bombay. That's where we landed first. And the Indian ruler who allowed us to stay, for whom we are very grateful that we were allowed to land in India, said, you will only live here. So we lived for 700 years in that place till the British came. When the British invaded India, they said, there is no such thing, you can do what you want. And that's where our great companies like Tata started the Air India, the Chittaranjan locomotive in Calcutta. They were all done by Parsis. There are hospitals in India which are for everybody, not only for Parsis, but the schools. We had our own schools. We have like your JTC colonies were built for us, only for us, and nobody else, because we didn't want to take anything from the Indians. That helped us because the Indians trusted us a lot till today. When the British came, one of the things that helped us was because very high education in the community. So when the British first shroff in the banks, you know, shroff means the money, who handles the money in the bank, were the Parsis, who took over from the British. And after that, many other things happened. The British were a little favorable to us for many reasons. The most important thing was that when we came to Singapore, we didn't realize that there were all these other Indians. Because in Bombay, there was no such thing as, we all grew up in the same school with all these various communities, various religions. Nobody bothered about you, who you are, how rich you are, or what. We studied in the Christian schools. I studied in St. Xavier's, but there was no such thing till we came to Singapore. I came to Singapore in 1971. I was vice president of an American company. I was sent here to set up a plant. And I started realizing when I wanted to set up the plant and I wanted workers, then they said, oh, you are an Indian? I said, yes. No, you're not an Indian. Only Indians work at Serangoon Road. I said, then you go and work at Serangoon Road if you want to work. Don't work for me. That's when I started realizing what's going on here, why people feel like that. So I started taking a little more interest. And the other thing that happened was, the Indians were really recognized when professors started coming into the NUS and NTU university. When the first professors came into the universities, it opened the eyes of every community, even the Chinese, to say, hey, we didn't know professors were Indians. That's how they realized that Indians were also a strength. But as far as the Parsis are concerned, we are one of the smallest community because of some issue in the religion. Imagine the whole of Persia at one time was Parsi, or the Zoroastrians. The Cyrus the Great, Darius the Great, those kings were Zoroastrian kings. And then today we have less than 200,000 people in the world. Because we cannot convert and we don't convert. It's not part of our religion, but because we had given a promise in India that we will not convert and not mix with other religion. And that's why even in India, we are not allowed to have our marriages during the day at one time. We must have it after sunset, so nobody can see it. I'm a little deaf of the ear, so it's good that you show me the board. Anyway, I just joke about it. So anyway, what I will show you is Parsis came to Singapore. When I came in 71, there were less than 40 Parsis. But some of the Parsis who came here also did charities. Many people don't know about these charities. One of the major charities, I would say, is in the Singapore General Hospital. When Mr. Mistry, a millionaire here in Singapore, bachelor, gave $1 million to the Singapore General Hospital to build a children's wing. Why he did that was when he was sick, he found the children and male and everybody was put up in the same ward. He said, how can that be? So he gave $1 million to the Singapore General Hospital, and today that mystery wing is still there. His bust is put there, and today also, because of that, the mystery road is there in Shenton Way. And the Parsi road is there because there was, that time, a sanatorium there. We had a sanatorium because we were traders. We were moving from China to Tehran via Singapore. So they built the sanatorium so people passing through can take rest. Later on, that was taken away, and we were given about $400,000, which are still lying in a trust, because those Parsis felt that, oh, we put it in a trust would be very safe. They should have bought the land. But anyway, we couldn't do anything. Even in 71, we argued with them, but they said, no, this money cannot be used. So they opened a trust. We have a Parsi law charity with $500,000 sitting there for looking after the cemetery. But we don't have a place of our own today. This is Parsis. But anyway, we are happy here because the people who are brought here or who have come to Singapore are all highly educated. So we are not looking for anything from the Singaporeans. We are here to contribute to this country, and I will show you some slides for the next few minutes that who are they. So the first recorded history shows that the Parsi came somewhere in 1800. We don't know exact time and date. And then we had in the 19th century, Mr. Faramro Sorabji, and his son was Kharsaji. He married an English lady. And so you see the John Little Company that you know, the very famous, it also belonged to a Zoroastrian. And then in 1889, the Parsi Law Charity was formed. That was the one I'm talking about. And Mr. Pestanji and Mr. Manchiji was first Parsi trustees. And income from the trust was used for charity and upkeep of the burial ground in Shenton Way. From that money, because that time interest was good, we used to get interest, and we could even give scholarships to other religions. Today we can't do even that because we have to maintain the cemetery. Nanabai Faramji and Darabai Rustamji, the last trustees, when they left, there was nobody here. So the management was transferred to the Mohammedan and Hindu Endowment Board, like some other community said that. The Parsis of the era, Mr. Dhanjibai Hormaji, he served on the grand jury in 1854. And Mr. Kama Beramji Hormaji Kama opened an English school in Tanjong Pagar Road, which was free for locals. Adalji Khori, he was the Grand Master of the Masonic Lodge, which is still there, next to the Philatelic Bureau. English scholar, Mr. Hirji Pesenji Kaka, he started a Chinese newspaper. And Sorabi Kawaji became editor of the Eastern Daily Mail and editor of the Straits Press Syndicate. In 1903, Mr. Firoz Shah Manikji Faramroz, he was a very famous man in here. Faramroz erected water factory, and then he had another partner, Mr. Mistry, who separated from him and started the Phoenix edited water factory. They were the first ones to supply water in Singapore in that edited factory. They were not making only cold drinks. And then Mr. P.C. Dawa, he is another gentleman who you don't even know because he left $2 million in a Hong Kong Shanghai bank in a trust for the interest to be used for any community children to be educated. And we still are giving out to them. Today, the trustee of the Hong Kong Shanghai Bank trustees, there is only one Parsi there, Dr. Firoz Medora. The Mr. Pesi Dawa left the $2 million with Hong Kong Shanghai Bank. The interest is still being donated out. There are people who come and tell us that I studied under and we don't even know them. But they come and see us from time to time to say, you know, I studied under your scholarship. That is how the Parsi Association was formed only in 1954 because the Parsis, the few Parsis that were left, they felt that they must have the control of the community. So they started the association. But for many years, they had this issue that non-Parsi spouses cannot be allowed. So later on, we changed the constitution in 2004 because today we cannot control people getting married outside. This was not part of the religion. It was part of the religion from where we gave a promise in India and we wanted to fulfill it. So today we changed that. Parsi spouses are part of our community. They are the most helpful people. So I'm glad that we did that. And recently we had a Parsi young boy. His father died. He gave him $2 million. We have a shop house where we are allowed to use it for only 2 years, which another few months' time it will end. We don't know whether we'll continue or not. So we don't have a place of our own except the cemetery. But how do we meet? The whole family. We use the condos. Every month we must have something to be done. Oh, did they drink? So anyway, just 2 minutes more. Anyway, just if you turn around one more. These are the people who really were the shining stars of the Parsi community, or Zoroastrian community here. Dr. Rustam Cooper, an eminent tax consultant. Late Mr. Soli Sitna, director of the Neptune Orient Lines. He worked with our premier, Go Chak Tong. Mr. Jamshed Medora is still alive. He runs a chartered accountant company. Dr. Pesi Chacha, head and professor of the Department of Orthopedic Surgery, and Dr. Jimmy Darwala, they run the orthopedic surgery at Mount Elizabeth Hospital. And also Dr. Jimmy Darwala is the founder of the Dyslexia Association. And today he's still the president of the Dyslexia Association after 21 years. Mr. Kai Nargulwala is the group executive director for the Wholesale Banking Standard Chartered Bank. That's me, forget about it. Jimmy Doctor, president of the Lions. There are other two Parsis whose names are not there, but there was Mr. Medora, Kaki Medora, the father of Jamshed Medora, and Mr. Who was our high priest, Wakil. And these two people, the slide has been missing. So the other thing, the ladies here, the ladies who are still alive, they are also involved in community works. Because we have a very small community association, they go to the inner will. And most of them have become presidents of the inner will. And what is the outcome of that? They help the ladies, the women in Singapore. This Daisy Irani, somebody was asking about some plays in Malaysia. This is Daisy, our Daisy, Apri Daisy. She is a very well-known media artist here, and she has now become a director of the Singapore television. These are our jewels, as we call them, our jewels, our children. And though we are small, they compete. and we encouraged them. My own two children were the gymnasts. They were the first Parsi gymnasts in Singapore, both champions, Southeast Asia Games, five Southeast Asia Games, my youngest daughter. Ayesha Karkaria, the individual doubles tennis champion. Rohinton Bappu, he was the Trinity Open Juniors, and he was also a squash champion in Singapore. And Zubin Shroff. Zubin Shroff was a national cricket player, very famous in the cricket industry. Many of the Indians knew him because of that. And this young boy recently won the Best Junior Cadet Award of the Space Camp organized by the Space Academy of Singapore. Those are the two astronauts. He was invited to US to meet them. So, that's it, I think. All right. So this is, I would say that we are very happy to be in Singapore, and we are contributing to the economy of Singapore to build Singapore as a good nation. I am putting more time in the community today because I've retired after 17 years as a semiconductor vice president in Asia. So what do I do now? I'm only over 21. So I have to do that. Thank you.
This is a local Chitti Malacca wedding ceremony. The earlier ones. This one is actually the wedding ceremony of the Naika. You see the costumes there. The Chinese practice, there's the two of them like page boy, page girl there. And you see the costume, the caps of the men. And the particular, see the bridegroom's costume. And the other one is the bride. See the influence of the Chinese or Malay or Indonesian influence as well. Okay. This is the other one. You look them after the wedding ceremony in the costume they turn to sari, and you notice the Indian costume with the turban as well. This is another one. You could see the ceremony, some of the bridal chamber, all the typical Hindu ceremonies. Okay, fine. This is actually the tali, the wedlock, which Hindus wear. Okay, this is just by vinegar tali for the tie. The bridegroom rides down the neck of the bride. Okay, thank you.
Small in numbers, but big in heart, as the Parsis. Small in numbers, but determined to keep to identity, to culture, to contribute to the mosaic that is Singapore and Malaysia. Now, as the Vice Chairman of the Concepts Committee, can I just say a few words? This center will not be static. It will not be a center where you come and see exhibits and you go away. It will be a center where all these stories will be told periodically. For example, Onam Festival. The Malayali community will have the space and the time and the opportunity to come and expand on one or other aspect. We would have opportunities for, say, the Sri Lankan Tamil community to come and expand their stories. So we are planning it to be a year-round place which will be lively, vibrant, so you don't go and visit it just one time. You will visit it continuously.